Okay. All right, I'll call the Personnel and Administration Committee meeting to order. First thing, we need approval of the minutes of the prior committee meeting. Motion by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay, in our action agenda, our first item is items or requests to be discussed by the Human Resources Director and/or our Personnel Officer. Who would like to go? Whether Jackie or Trish? Trish, are you there?
I think the only thing that Jackie had was just a review of tracking of vacancies. I don't see her on here, so I assume she's just giving that to you for information. If you have any questions, you should just give her a call, but she doesn't have any action items.
Okay. All right, we'll move into item action number 2, referral from the Health Services Committee, Public Health. Request to amend the departmental table of organization and salary schedule to create a full up to 10 public health assistant per diem positions, annual salary of $37,633, prorated to $18.09 per hour, effective April 20th, 2020. Would someone like to move this to get it on the floor? Supervisor Frazier? Do we have a second? Supervisor Garrity? Any discussion?
Yes. Supervisor Simpson, this is
Okay.
Tammy DiLorenzo.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention that the Health Services Department did put a public health assistant on an emergency basis March 28th. That was Saturday. So that would have to be backdated to be retroactive to March 28th, 2020, with your approval.
Okay, so Supervisor Frazier made that motion. Would you agree to amend that?
Yes, I would.
And Supervisor Garrity acknowledges that he's good with the second.
Yes.
Okay, is everybody ready for the question? This is backdated to March 28th, 2020. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it's carried. Item number 3, request items to be discussed by the county administrator. At this point, I'll turn it over to Administrator Moore.
Good morning, everybody. Waiting for the sheriff to get on to discuss his first item. Okay, if we move on to 3B, is that all right, Matt?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so 3B is the compensation schedule amendment. When we create a new position, we don't just, it's not the Board of Supervisors saying we hereby create a position. We do it by amending the compensation schedule. So we put the title in and we put the entry-level salary on there. The compensation schedule is, if you look at your budget, look at the final pages of the printed budget, and you'll see all of the positions in the county along with their salaries. Now, for most positions, they're unionized positions, and the salary is set based on a collective bargaining agreement. So when you have a promotion into a position or something that results in the person not taking the job at the base salary, the contract is binding on the county, and the contract amends the compensation schedule. For the non-union positions, which is the grid that we created last year, I built it in such a way where it's not automatic, because the whole idea of that grid is that it's advisory, objective, based on data, and we will recommend a salary off of that schedule for the board's consideration. It's a check that I put on myself, essentially, so that I'm not awarding salaries off of that schedule without knowing what's going on. typically what we would do is when we hire a new department head, if we're going to hire that department head at a salary that is not at the entry level, we would run it through personnel, and we would get the personnel committee on board with amending the compensation schedule to the salary that we are recommending for that title. And we've done that before. What's different about this scenario is that the board authorized the position to be created, and then we went and recruited somebody to take it immediately, and we negotiated a salary right after the position was created. So the position was created at the last board meeting, the March board meeting, and then so we create the position at entry level, which is what we always do. And then the 5 supervisors and I went back and we found somebody to take the job, and we offered them the job at a salary. So it's a technical matter of correcting the compensation schedule to the salary that that Mr. Lehman in this case has already been awarded by the committee that hired him. A committee is a bad word, by the subgroup that helped me make the decision. So until that happens, the payment that he gets, and I believe today is the first payday, is actually it's based on that entry level salary. So what we're asking for this resolution is that you amend the compensation schedule to the salary that he was offered when he accepted the job, and that we make it retroactive to the date that he accepted the job. And then the treasurer's office will rectify the fact that up until then, he's getting paid a lower salary than what he was offered. So that's the request.
Okay, would someone like to move this to the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second that
Supervisor
motion.
Wild, seconded by Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? Okay, are we ready for the question? Claudia, was that discussion?
Yeah, I have a question for Ryan.
Okay,
Okay. Ryan, you said that in the past that we have run the changes through the personnel committee if we are not going based off your salary grid. My understanding of the salary grid is that it's a way for us to be more objective and uniform across our non-union employees, and also that you went out and looked at other counties when you set that salary grid.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Right.
Give me an example recently when we
YouTubing, thank you.
changed that
And
salary
I said
grid.
zooming. And then YouTubing, wonderful, thank you. Bye.
When we hired somebody, but in the prior cases, we amended their salary compensation.
Are you
I
asking
can't think.
when we've hired somebody under this salary scale, not at the entry rate? Is that what the question is?
Yeah, basically.
Liza Oxendorf?
Okay, so in that case, she's not at the grade and step that she's not at the entry level step.
Correct.
And what did we use as a basis for putting her up higher in the steps?
We wanted her to accept the position because she was eminently qualified, and we had a conversation with her to negotiate a salary. The same as this board did with me when you hired me.
Did we have any, Matt, is it okay if I,
go ahead. And
thank you.
then Supervisor Garrity.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I can't see everybody. Do we have any guidelines about how we're translating number of years in private sector to the county government experience? Do we have anything like that? I mean, Don has tons of experience, so maybe we don't even put him at step 5. We can't say that he has no experience, but we also can't say he has 5 years of county experience. Do we have anything, any parameters?
We've left it very open to this is, so we start off on the grades, right? Based on the responsibilities of each position, we assign a grade, and that is informed by what all the department heads do here in comparison to the others, and it's also something that's informed by what department heads in other counties do and the grades that are set in those counties. So those are the grades. And then in terms of the range, where we have the steps, if you will, and we call them, they're not automatic here. We call them merit steps. And the merit steps, you become eligible for a merit step as you advance in years at the county. You don't get it unless your merit review merits it, for lack of a better word. It's an advisory process. These are, what we're trying to do is say, this is the objective range that you could qualify for. And then based on each individual, we'll do an analysis and a discussion to see what the salary that we want to recommend to the Board of Supervisors. So that analysis is different for everybody. It's different for every position. And we don't have any hard and fast rules for, if you have this amount of years of private experience, this is what it translates into on that grid. We want to be adaptable. We don't want to nail ourselves down on rules that don't apply to every situation. So, and that's the point of bringing this to the board level, which is what this resolution seeks to do. It's that the Personnel Committee delegated this decision to me. I asked that I have 4 or 5 supervisors to help me, because I didn't want to be out there on my own making that decision. So Supervisor Simpson, Sieber, Driscoll, McGowan, and Garrity stepped up to help me do that. We all took a look at that range that this position would qualify for. We took a look at the qualities of the individual that we decided to hire to this position, and we all settled on a number that we thought was appropriate. But again, when I built this system, I wanted a situation where that group of 6 of us wouldn't be the final decision. It's got to come to the Board of Supervisors. This is a salary that we're recommending based on the process that we used that was delegated to us. So does that answer the question?
Clear as mud. No, I think I get what you're saying, and I'm not questioning the hiring of Don. I do appreciate what he's doing and has been doing since he got on board. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Garrity. You're on mute.
Well, unmute me then. I'm unmuted now, right?
Yes.
I'm not muted. The other thing I would offer is that, we try to offer a compatible salary that deals with their years of service in a certain field. Now, some jobs will match up across the grid by county, some jobs don't. But we've done it before. We started this probably 10 years ago, when we were doing a lot of the police officers coming in. They gave them so many years of service based on where they came, where they transferred. It's a little bit different because they are union people, but we've started this years ago. And I was just going to reiterate, we did the same thing with Liza, a good candidate, good experience, so you raise the salary. And that's why I'm comfortable. And will it be hit and miss on time? Sure it will be. Would it be nice that you could look at the grid and plug people in to in a perfect world? I guess you can, but I'm okay with the way we're doing it. And we did have discussion, and at least the supervisors in the room were happy about it. So, and I must say, coming from where I worked for 32 years, every bit of my raise was based on performance. So if I performed well, I knew what I was going to get. And I think we're trying to get there, the county. That's where we're aiming for. That's what I believe.
And the
That's it. Thanks.
The deliberation that we had on this, just for information, we advertised this position at a range from that base salary of 58,000 and change up to 71,000. That's where where that grade tops out. So we advertised the position at a range, and the minimum qualifications for the position were 7 years of experience. So when you take a look at a guy like Don, to your point, Claudia, about his vast experience and whether 5 should be higher, I don't think it should. That's what we all thought was appropriate. He's got 30 years of experience. Minimum quals were 7. And so, putting him at the 5th year level, we all thought was more than reasonable.
Okay, are we ready for the question? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed.
One opposed? Carried.
The second, rather, it's C under my agenda. Do we have the sheriff yet? We don't have the sheriff. All right, 3C on my agenda is delegation of authority regarding COVID-19 emergencies. Not to be gloom and doom, but the scenario we already have a public health committee where if we are running a decision through a public meeting that it needs to be noticed and produces a resolution, we have a system in place to do that. What this is designed for is a true emergency scenario where we need action right away. We don't have time to notice a meeting. We don't have time to scramble supervisors together. We got to get something done and get it done quick. What is an example of that hypothetically? And again, not to scare anybody, not to be gloom and doom, but we have to prepare for worst case scenarios. An example of that is we got the entire floor of the hospital full of people who are in critical condition. We don't have enough nurses to take care of them. So we are, morning Supervisor Diamond. You want to sit up here? So Supervisor Diamond is here. And in that situation, we're trying to be nimble and be prepared for, do we need to create 10 nursing positions in public health and retirees and deploy them to the hospital? It might be the state has made money available, or perhaps not, for emergency equipment, or there's a whole bunch of testing kits that just came online and we need a mechanism to purchase those testing kits and get them to the hospital. I'm not saying any of these scenarios will actually play out, but in the event that they do, we want to be nimble and we want to be ready to do it. And so we all thought that the most appropriate way to do that is similar to what we did for the census, knowing that the census was a time-sensitive issue. The board thought it was appropriate to delegate authority to me to make a certain amount of decisions that would otherwise need to go through the board, just to get them done and get them done in a timely manner. I don't like having authority delegated just to me. I thought it was more appropriate to delegate it to the 5 positions that are on the resolution request: the finance chair, the chair of the board, the chair of personnel, chair of the public health committee, and what was the other one? I don't remember my own request. Is it in the packet? Tammy, what's the other one? Oh, the budget officer. I'm sorry, the budget officer. So that's what this request is. It's to pass a resolution at the next board meeting that will, in emergency situations only, allow that group to make the decision and to get a process in motion that needs to be in motion to protect public health and public safety. If we ever have to invoke it, I hope we don't. We will have everything documented and stapled to the resolution for the treasurer's office, for HR, for purchasing, for whoever may need that documentation. And we'll also be reporting any action taken under this back to the full board.
Okay, would someone like to move this resolution, this request? Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Discussion? Okay, Claudia.
Thanks, Chairman. I definitely think we need to be able to respond nimbly. I'm pretty sure with the census thing, we had a specific amount of money. Are we putting any kind of money limitation? I mean, I don't think you guys should have authority to spend $10 million, for instance. We're going to say 10,000, 100,000. Let's put some parameters on there.
I'm comfortable with that.
I don't see the resolution in our packets at all. Nothing for 3C.
I'm comfortable with a monetary limit. Maybe the budget officer or the county treasurer has a perspective on that.
Supervisor Garrity?
I don't, whatever the board is comfortable with. I mean, certainly we won't want to go out and spend, certain scenarios would I don't know. I don't have any thoughts. I hope I never have to make that decision. But whatever the board wants, whatever the rest of you feel is appropriate, I can work within those parameters.
Mike, Treasurer Swan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I feel the same way Kevin does about this. Whatever the board feels is appropriate. I'm hoping we never have to use this, like Administrator Moore said, but I think it's appropriate to do. You know, I'm looking just off the top of my head, maybe $150,000 limit, something like that.
Supervisor Conover?
Would the committee consider, rather than, I mean, we're in the middle of a fight here, the county administrator and others. I mean, why don't we say that at a certain threshold, he's going to advise the board anyway, but why don't you just say at a certain threshold, he advises relative to that threshold, as opposed, I mean, what's he supposed to do? Stop fighting? I mean, I think that, and then, so I guess what I'm wondering here is, should we really just ask for a reporting mechanism as opposed to some financial on-off kind of switch? But I would leave it to the administrator. If he's satisfied with a cap and 100's okay, but I'd rather have it more of a reporting mechanism, I think. But I'll just throw that out there for discussion.
Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would this be part of the continuity of operations plan?
I think it's a little outside of that. The continuity of operations plan, for the most part, is designed for normal times. I sent mine out last night to my staff, just so they all know who should handle day to day if I can't, for different tasks. And none of those tasks are anything that we're performing right now. We're not doing budget analysis here. We're doing pandemic response.
Okay, any other questions? Supervisor Bramer?
I wanted to say in response to Ron's point, I like the reporting mechanism, but I also think there should be some hard, fast limit that says we need to get the board back together. Because, I mean, look, we can even do this sort of meeting in a day's notice. So I think 100,000 is a good bump to say, all right, we've got to get the board back together for a meeting to discuss what's happening and how much.
Okay, I think Doug is next.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with everybody. You guys already brought it up. We got to have a hard number. I'm not comfortable with going along with no number. So if this group feels the 100,000 is the number, then that's fine. And I also agree with Claudia that we can get together at a moment's notice now, basically, via the remote. So I would support 100,000, but that would be the max I'd support without further board authorization. Thanks.
Okay. Supervisor Sieber? I'm sorry. Supervisor Wild, I can't tell whose hands are up. I don't see that on my screen.
That's okay. I think Mike's a member of your committee. I'll wait.
I was going to yield to Rachel. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Rachel.
I was yielding to you, Mike, as a member of the committee.
Awesome, thanks.
I'll follow after.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, being nimble is important in crisis times. And I don't believe it's appropriate for us to be able to put a number that might be artificially low, $100,000. What if he needs $120,000 and we get in a situation where we're bidding against other county for resources? And we've seen what happened with the federal government and states trying to outbid each other for equipment now. This is an emergency situation. I think we need to trust our administrator to do what's right. And if it's $120,000 and we put a limit of $100,000, he may lose the opportunity to grab us what we need. So let's kind of put some control in this that says you have to alert us right away when he's making that decision. If there's a big blowback, maybe we can roll this back. But at the time, let's let him make these decisions. And I think, 200,000 or 250,000 might be more appropriate. I trust his judgment, and hopefully everyone else on this committee and the board does also. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Seaver?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think it's more what, while Mike brings up a point about no limit or a higher limit, to me, it's not about a trust factor. It's more about the checks and balances during an emergency situation that still continue to roll. And I would say, given our abilities to connect in this fashion, that seems much more appropriate to have that limit and then be able to call these meetings should the need arise, which we've obviously been illustrating that we're capable of doing, and certainly in a short notice as well. My question is, once this gets passed, I assume, Ryan, something will be sent out to us prior to the full board meeting to review. I've been following a lot of what's going on in the paper in other counties and want to make sure that prior to whatever board vote, I fully understand what this resolution and the powers that we put into this resolution actually mean.
Yes, and I apologize for it not being in the packet. We were working on this up until late last night, and yes, the answer is yes. As soon as we can possibly get a draft together, I'll get that draft out to you. And if you want to make comments on the draft, we'll get it to where everybody's comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Okay, so what was the number that we settled in on? Anybody? I heard 150, and then I heard.
Mr. Chairman, let's let Ryan, our administrator, come up with a number of what he thinks he might need to react to quickly.
Okay.
And what he thinks his upper limit should be, considering various scenarios. And it could be that, like I mentioned, he might need to go over something by $10,000 or 10%. And all of a sudden we lose an opportunity to get critical supplies. So I really believe we need to ask Ryan to position this in terms of what he thinks he needs to do.
Okay. So do we need a resolution with an open number on that? Brian?
Well,
Do you want a resolution or just?
What's the point of having an open number? If there's going to be a number, there's got to be a number, and I don't know what that number should be because this changes by the minute.
Okay. Okay, then Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, I feel happy with 150,000. If everybody else is above and beyond the trust, is like I said, if we have to make a move and make it move quickly, I don't want this held up. So so I'd be comfortable with with 150, and then over that, then we have to go with a quick meeting or however we have to handle this.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. It takes me a second to unmute my line, but I'm thinking that, and I agree with Brad saying, potentially 150,000. Why don't we still allow things to move quickly? And it says if it goes above that limit, it's up to the chairman to approve it. So all he has to do is call one person, right? Instead of trying to pull this group together, which isn't always that easy to do. And what if we can't get a quorum together? That means the decision is delayed. Let's get a tree of individuals that can help approve this.
The quick meeting that we're talking about would be a Board of Supervisors meeting. That's the Board of Supervisors is giving authority under this. And if you're going to give me a limit on a dollar amount, if we're going over that dollar amount, unless you were to do what Mike suggested and have an escape valve using the chairman, going over that dollar amount is going to require an action of the full board.
Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, go to the chairman and he can make that call, and we can work toward, what we have to. I mean, like I said, we're in some critical times here, and they're unprecedented, and we don't know any factors. So,
Supervisor Bramer.
Sorry, thanks. I still think that we should have some sort of mechanism that pulls the board back together. So maybe we say, a certain limit, and then 10% over that could get the chairman's approval, and then anything over that would need the full board again. It's not that hard to pull the full board together, and we should be doing that. I mean, in all frankness, Frank has been communicating through Ryan our information, but there's no reason we can't have better communication through a full board meeting, making sure the entire public knows and that we are responding. This will be a way to show that we are responding rather than doing it without everyone on the board knowing and the public knowing.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I appreciate the debate, but I get into this thought process that our administrator mentioned to us that this is in a dire crisis mode, deeper than where we are today. And, I think about leadership, and I've thought about this every once in a while in the activities that are going on now. And part of leadership is to either lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I think we need to lead by delegating to Ryan. And I don't want to be part of a board that slows us down, that we can't react quickly enough if we have to. We need to set the precedent here that it's a dire situation where Ryan or someone needs to move quickly. And we can't impede that because we feel like we need to control. We need to get out of the way in a situation like this and allow things to happen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there anybody else? Supervisor Bramer.
Well, that is all true, Supervisor Wild. Ryan has not been elected. We have been elected to make decisions and lead the way. So sure, we can delegate stuff to Ryan and have him move forward on our behalf, but at some point it's our decision and we need to make that decision known to the public. I did move this and I am happy to see it go forward with some further language in a written resolution that comes to the board.
So that we have Amanda, do we have a motion on the floor right now? Yeah.
Yes,
That
yes,
was
you have
a
a motion made by Mr. McGowan and seconded by Ms. Bramer.
Okay.
What is that motion?
At this point, it's just to delegate authority regarding COVID-19 emergency actions to the group that you stated. At this point, no dollar amount has been assigned.
Or are we withdrawing that motion? Are we amending that motion? What are we doing?
I'm ready to vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it looks like everybody's ready to vote. We'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I don't, Supervisor Conover, are you,
Just a clarification, this is on the resolution that
as it was written?
that was originally articulated.
Yes,
All right, that we're going to delegate this authority
yes.
with no dollar amount. Okay, yes, I vote for that. Yes.
Okay. Is there any opposed? Okay, Claudia?
I am not opposed, but I thought from our discussion, we were at least going to have Ryan look at putting in some sort of mechanism for a dollar limitation. And then put that in writing to us in a resolution for the board to consider.
No, we had confirmed what we just voted on was the resolution as it was written. There was no amendments to it. Go ahead.
I don't see a written resolution. I
Well,
mean, I
as it
understand the
was stated.
concept. What Amanda stated? Okay, well, I'm not gonna vote it down at this point, but without dollar figures, I can't
Can I suggest something?
necessarily say I'll support that at the full board. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Beatty, did I see your hand up?
Yes, thank you. You got me?
I do.
Okay, thanks. I'm not going to support this at a full board meeting. There's got to be some checks and balances. And, I know what leadership is and isn't. And, I hear Mr. Wild, but I'm not going to give up my responsibility either. And without any dollar amounts, this is too far for me. So I definitely vote against it in its current format. Now, if there's an amendment when we bring it to the full board, then I'll reconsider. But in this format, I can't go for it with no dollar amount, just unlimited financial authority. I'm not comfortable with that at all.
And, Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Excuse me, I hear somebody speaking.
That's me.
Oh, okay, there we go.
I'll make a suggestion. The motion that was passed unanimously, I think, was not to
Yes.
have a dollar amount attached to it. So we will write the resolution that way, but we'll do this on the honor system. If it goes above 150,000, I'll go to Frank, and we'll keep everybody informed. Does that work?
Works for me.
Works for me. Is there anybody that would like to speak on that? Supervisor McGowan, you're good. Supervisor Sieber?
Thank you. I know I'm not on this committee, but usually we have an opportunity as supervisors to weigh in if we're not on the committee. I would just say, I mean, given recent events and everything we're seeing, not only from other counties, but historically in our own, I don't understand why we can't talk about a limit. If it's not working, come back to the board and modify it. But, you know, I think to have a zero limit is a mistake. And Ryan, I understand the sentiment behind an honor system, but this is county government. I don't think that an unlimited approval is warranted, and to put a cap on it and have an ability to get back together and have discussion and to make those policy decisions is what our board is designed to do. I understand the delegation of authority, but I think this has to be more of a working together atmosphere, and also recognizing that you're going to have immediate needs, Ryan, and if 100 or 150 isn't enough, then maybe it's coming back and talking about exactly how we could be implementing that. But without a dollar limit, I don't know. I'm just surprised the board would support it.
Okay, Supervisor Wild and then Chairman Thomas.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I hear what everybody is saying about controls and financial controls, but just think about this is how this would play out with your constituents. You want to put a limit on us to slow us down in a dire emergency. I'm not going to be one that's going to support a limit, because I think our constituents would want us to be able to react quickly if we have an opportunity to save lives or whatever we need to do. I really think you ought to consider this about voting no for it, because that's basically what you're telling our constituents. We don't care if it's in a dire emergency, that we need to get involved before we can spend the money to do that. I just like you guys to consider that. That's my only comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Thomas.
You know, if 150,000 is what everybody or most people are comfortable with, I can guarantee you that if we get in a dire situation like that, that we will have a meeting before we go spending a whole huge amount of money. So that's without a doubt.
Okay, Brian.
Can I ask then that the resolution that just went through this committee be withdrawn, and that we put a resolution on that speaks to what the chairman just said? Because what I cannot have happen is for us to get to the board meeting with a resolution that people are not happy with, that does not pass, and now I have no authority at all. That would be a colossal blunder on the part of the Board of Supervisors. I need something to get out of this committee that can pass at the April board meeting.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer.
I would love to support that. And I would be happy to make a new motion, withdraw the prior one. And I agree with our chairman that at $150,000, we should bring the board back together, no matter what's happening. Mike, I know that, you know, maybe we need to buy masks, but what if there's some other thing that is also critically important, and we need to make a policy decision as a board to come up with that? What are we going to throw our money at? And it should be a board decision. I think up to 150,000 gives Ryan a lot of leeway, and the other people who are on that little team who will be, right? It's a team. I'm looking at you, Ryan, because you're on my screen to my left. Anyway.
Okay, do we have a second?
I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this be a big debate at the full board meeting.
Okay, do we have a second to Claudia's motion to withdraw the original motion? Original resolution? I'm not seeing one. Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, I'll second that only because of the proposal put out by the chairman. So I'll second that because we can't move his motion until we withdraw this motion.
Okay, now we have people that want to speak. Supervisor Leggett and Doug, are you still on there wanting to speak? Okay,
No,
Supervisor Leggett.
no, I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor
Thank you,
Leggett.
Mr. Chairman. It seems as if there are a small group of supervisors to work with the administrator on approving any actions. That can be a nimble way of doing it and be part of the checks and balances. It's not as if this is going to be unrepresented action. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is to withdraw the resolution that we passed prior. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Carried. Okay, so now Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, let me take a stab at this. That the county administrator is authorized to make such decisions during this emergency crisis, as he's articulated, up to an amount of $150,000 with the understanding that should they anticipate it going beyond that, that the chairman of the board will convene a meeting of the board. Did I get that right, Frank? Just want to make sure. I want to hear from the chair.
Seconded by Supervisor Bramer.
Did I hear from the chairman that I stated that correctly?
Yes,
Frank?
you did.
Okay.
Question.
Okay,
Are you delegating just to me, or are you delegating to that group that I initially proposed?
That group that you initially proposed. It's your proposal with a dollar amount, but with a commitment from the chairman that if it goes above that, we'll come back to the board.
okay, any discussion? Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, in terms of expediency, can we set a time limit that if we can't pull the board together for whatever reason within 24 hours, then it's up to the chairman and this group of small group of supervisors to move forward?
24 hours is too long. In a situation like this, it needs to be 2 hours.
Okay? I'm all for that. Let's allow us to be expedient. That's the whole reason behind this resolution, is to be able to move nimbly and quickly. So let's put this time limit on there, whatever it needs to be.
Are you offering that as an amendment? Was that an amendment?
Yes, sir. That's what I was hoping to do.
And can you state that one more time? You're amending the resolution?
I would prefer it come from our administrator, Mr. Moore. I think he understands, but basically what I'd like to do is put a time limit on how quickly the board needs to get together to authorize higher spending limits. And our administrator recommended 2 hours. And I would totally support that. We can't just say, let's get the board together and it takes 24 hours or 36 hours for the full board to get together, or at least a quorum to get together. The whole idea is to be able to move quickly. So let's put a time limit on. And I agree with our administrator's suggestion of 2 hours.
Supervisor Conover,
I will second that, of course. I mean, that's the whole idea. If the chairman can convene the board, he will. But if he can't, the administrator has to have the authority
okay.
to protect the public.
You have to agree to amend the motion, and Supervisor Bramer would have to agree to that amendment also.
Are you waiting for me?
Yes.
I will agree to amend the motion. I want to state out loud Andrea's point in the comments, which is that notice needs to be by more than just email so that we can be alerted to the fact that there's a meeting coming up. So maybe, Amanda, can you just keep that in mind? Thank you. That doesn't need to be in the resolution, just, technically, administratively, whatever. Give us a call, please.
Okay, are we ready for the question? Supervisor Seaver. Sorry.
Thanks. I'm just, I appreciate that. And Ryan, I appreciate the problem solving leadership, and Frank, that ability and commitment to your board about the 150, I think really is very important and is much, is very appreciated. However, to Claudia's point and Andrea's, just to take that a step further, Ryan, is there a way that when this resolution is presented to the board, maybe there is an administrative note about in that dire emergency, in that 2 hours, to have that email, phone, and text notice to the board so that we can convene with that 2 hours? I think it is important to have something in writing that says how that communication is going to go out to the board, just for checks and balances down the road. Again, it's not a trust issue. It's that this board should be here to provide those checks and balances and to still delegate the emergency responsibilities to our county administrator and our chairman.
We will do everything in our power to get the word out. If Frank says we need a meeting, we'll have this meeting on Zoom, and we will call people, we will drive to people's houses, we will do whatever we have to do to get a quorum together. But if we cannot get a quorum together 2 hours after the meeting, then we need to be able to move.
Okay. Are you ready for the question now?
Is that okay?
I think I'm seeing a lot.
I think it just needs to be in writing administratively behind the resolution somewhere with Amanda. That's all. But I appreciate that. I'd prefer you not drive to my house or me drive to yours, but but I get your point.
That makes me feel really good. Thank you.
Take no offense. I mean it to all of you.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. And item A, the sheriff has been waiting patiently. Sheriff, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning,
Okay.
Sheriff.
Good morning.
What do we have here?
I'm not sure. I had a couple items for Ryan, but I'm not sure which ones he's doing and in which order. So,
Ryan, do you want to?
This is a request. Are you hearing me?
I hear
Yeah,
everybody
yes.
clearly. It seems like there's a delay on my end as far as getting out.
This resolution is to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create the new position of patrol number 64. Base annual salary 42,373.
Ryan, I think you're frozen.
I thought that was my internet and he sounded terrible.
No,
All right,
this one
is that-
on
is that
3A.
better?
Yeah.
All right, Tammy just hardwired me in. I guess our internet is a little overloaded. This sheriff, this is a resolution.
No, it's still not working, Ryan.
You want me to read it, Ryan?
Yes.
This 3A is on behalf of the Sheriff's Office. It's a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create the new position of patrol officer number 64, effective June 1st.
Okay, with somebody, was that Supervisor McGowan making a motion? Do we have a second? Supervisor Frazier, discussion? Supervisor Conover?
Yes, I'm just trying to understand this. The position of 37868 for officer, year one officer number 64 is going to be paid for by surplus funds that were achieved in officer 57 position. By this action, are we deleting this position? Or
No, there's no deletion. What's occurring at the sheriff's office now is we are on a bit of a holding pattern for the Zone 5 Academy. I reached out to the director this week. They are still in session. They are on schedule for a June, July academy for the second half of the year. So we've had 2 patrol officer vacancies since the start of the year, the start of January and late January. And through that, we'll have a surplus in regular salaries under law enforcement. So for this year, there will be no impact to the budget. And for next year, the new position will be fully funded by 2 revenue sources.
Thank you.
And we ask for this position with the understanding that if something were to come apart with either one of those revenue sources, that the position would be lost through attrition. It's not an added extra position that we're looking to put out on the road and as a frontline officer.
That fully answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready for the question? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, pending items, there are none. And you have a list of the vacancies approved for filing by the for filling with by the Oversight Committee. Public Health, we had 2 registered professional nurses, grade 19s, and positions filled on emergency basis. Since our last meeting, Countryside, we had a institutional aide, number 3, part-time, and a social services principal account clerk, grade 10. Okay, I'll open it up. Any privilege of the floor? Sir, excuse me.
Mike Swan here.
Treasurer Swan, okay.
On my agenda, we had an item number 4. Did that get skipped or did did that get removed? Concerning compensation for employees that are working on site.
I don't have that on my agenda.
It's still on the agenda. I think we skipped it inadvertently.
Okay, all right.
I don't have that agenda. I have mine stops at 3A and B.
Are you looking at the agenda that was updated yesterday?
I checked my email and I don't see where I received another agenda.
It is posted to the county website. Do you want me to email it to you right now?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, because I don't have this agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Amanda, could you send it out to the committee? Because I don't see it either. Thank you.
It's just a line on the agenda. I don't see any other like attachments, right, Amanda?
I'm good then.
Okay. Do you want to move on this, Treasurer Swan? Keep moving forward on that?
Sure, I will. This was kind of a response to questions I had from employees and department heads because the counties around us have been giving hazard pay to on-site workers as a reward basically for having to come to work as opposed to the people that are staying at home. I felt, and I talked with Ryan about this, that the county, Warren County doesn't have the money to give actual hazard pay for this. Even though I think it would be a good idea, we just don't have the money. So Rob Lynch, my deputy, came up with the idea of why don't we compensate people with extra vacation time who have put themselves at risk to come on site to work, required to do so. And what we did was we came up with kind of a sliding scale. 90 to 100% of the time here, 5 additional days, 80 to 89% of the time here, 4 additional days, 70 to 79%, 3 days, 60 to 69%, 2 days, and 50 to 59%, 1 day. I sent this to Ryan. He seemed to be very in favor of it. We do have a little bit of a difference there. He wanted to include some of the off-site workers. I felt that this was a compensation for employees that are at risk. And I just thought I'd throw it out there. We've had a lot of comments about it. I've talked to some department heads and some staff that are here in the building, and they're very much in favor of it, obviously. But But I'll throw it out there for a thought for the committee and see what you think.
Okay, is there anybody that would like to speak on this? Administrator Moore?
And I compliment the treasurer and deputy treasurer for coming up with the idea. I think it's a cost-effective way to show our employees who are still working every day that we recognize that and we care about them. The reason why my thought was to include the remote workers as well is just so that we're not incentivizing people to come physically to the county who don't really need to be physically at the county. I just don't, for our department heads, having them potentially argue with employees who want the extra vacation benefit and are saying, well, I really ought to be working on the campus if, when they really don't need to be. Just my view on it. I just don't inadvertently want to, there's always unintended consequences that could happen. And I don't want this to inadvertently become something that drives people to want to be on site working when they really don't need to be. But I'm okay with whatever this committee and this board want to do. That's just my thought.
Supervisor Wild had his hand up.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. A couple of thoughts. I do agree that we need to compensate our staff that are on site. And I also agree with Administrator Moore that we probably should do something for those that are working remotely that are putting in a lot of time. And I know many are. But the third thought I had was, what are we doing for these people that are at risk, that we're asking them to be at risk? Are we doing anything along the lines of supporting what their healthcare costs might be? And are we covering any deductibles in the pocket that they might have in relation to their potential of acquiring this virus and being laid up for some time? I'm just curious if we can consider that.
We have telehealth, telemedicine, and we've dropped the copay down to zero to try to, number one, we want to incentivize that type of behavior in the first place. We want people to be home and to be evaluated remotely if that's possible. So and this goes back maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we dropped the copay for that down to nothing and have been promoting it with employees, hoping that they take advantage of that. I think if you look nationally, one of the things that they're saying is that telemedicine capability isn't where it should have been. That'll be one of the lessons learned after this crisis subsides. But we've offered telemedicine now this is our second year doing it, and it's hard to get people to do it, but we're really trying to get people out there doing it. The federal government also dropped out-of-pocket costs associated with testing. I'm not certain whether they have expanded beyond that to treatment. I just don't know. I haven't followed the federal laws well enough.
So if we're asking our employees to be at risk, let's think about the Sheriff's Department, some people in the Department of Health. I think it would be reasonable to help cover their medical expenses if they've acquired this in the line of duty. And
We do. We pay
100%.
Well, we're self-insured, so we pay the cost of the claim.
What about the deductible? That's what I'm referring to. Why should they, and I'm just thinking out loud, why should they experience out-of-pocket costs? Because we ask them to put themselves at risk to support our community.
Okay, I understand the point.
Just a thought, just curious where we might want to take this, if anywhere at all.
Not having this before we just, before our committee meeting here, I mean, does it make sense to, we've got time before our next board meeting to actually get more information, see this on paper, exactly what we want to do. It's hard to follow exactly all the moving pieces on what we want to change here. Does it make sense to do that and have another committee meeting? I'm sure we're going to have other meetings between now and our board meeting where this is the first time I'm seeing this and as chair.
I would have no problem with that. I mean, I don't want to rush this through. It's just an idea that we came up with to just, like I said, compensate the people that are at risk. We can't afford to do it financially. So, whatever the committee feels they're most comfortable with, I have no problem.
Yeah, I'm personally not comfortable just making a decision on the fly, because once you get down this road, you're beyond pulling it back and figuring out what the right thing is.
Yeah,
So,
I don't have a problem with that.
Supervisor or Administrator Moore?
Yes, I think that's fine. That's fine with me. We'll get it down on paper. If Jackie could prepare something to Mike Wild's suggestion, I do think it's a good suggestion that we should at least think about. Jackie, take a look at what other employees might be doing on this, and we can talk and figure something out. I'd also like to, when we bring this back, make it clear that at least I am not part of it. I don't want extra vacation time. I'm part of the process of making the decision on this. I don't want that decision tainted because it looks like I'm going to get something out of it. I don't want the extra vacation. Exempt me from this policy, please.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this? Not seeing any. Any other privilege of the floor items? Supervisor Garrity. You're on mute. You're on, oh, there you go.
Motion to adjourn.
There we go. We have a second. Supervisor Bramer. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And
Adjourn.
geez, I'm always on, they're always